Hello and welcome to everyone to this virtual class for Introduction to Journalism. Hopefully, everyone is staying safe at home. It is the quarantine time. Hopefully, the quarantine is going fine and you're able to manage your time and to study well and organize all the courses that you have. So, it is the time to take advantage of technology and have this virtual class online, which is very fun. You can access to it anytime that you want. So, yes, you are safe at home. I am safe. Everyone is safe. So, no stones and no broken bones. So, welcome one more time to this virtual class in which we are going to talk about a very fun topic. This topic is called interviews. All right, so interviews, I'm very positive you have heard about this word before. This is not something that you have never seen. This is not something that you have never heard before, and I'm sure that you did it yourself in your life, and you have seen it on any kind of media outlets, either on TV, radio, or you have read about it on the newspapers. Also, I am sure you have studied interviews in the course that is called Introduction to Communication. We study many different types of interviews. But this time we're going to focus on interviews from journalistic point of view because this is as part of Introduction to Journalism. So welcome one more time and let's begin. The key points for today's class will be, of course, I will be giving you a definition of interviews from a journalistic perspective, understanding interviews, principles, techniques, and practices, types of interviews, news conferences, four principles, and interviewers' ground rules. All right, so let's begin. What is an interview? Very simple. An interview is a kind of interpersonal communication that happens between two people or more. One is called interviewer, another called is interviewee. The interviewer is the person who is asking the questions, and the interviewee is the person who receives the questions and gives feedback to the interviewer. Very simple. These are basic information that we studied about if you remember the course Introduction to Communication. So, interview is a conversation with a person who is the source of information. All right, pretty much. So you are talking to someone, you're having a conversation with someone for a certain purpose. What is the purpose? Is to get information from him or from her. And that's why this person is called source of information. Generally, it will be like a question answer form, but may not be always. But most of the time, it is question answer format. This is basically how you run an interview. You ask a question and you give a chance for the person you're talking to give you back the answers. Interview can be formal or can be informal. A formal interview, for example, if you're going for a job interview, okay, someone will be talking to you, you have to look formal, you have to act formal, and you will be in a formal place. Informal interview, if you're having just, a friendly talk with a friend of yours or someone that you meet suddenly on the bench while you are commuting to the CBD, for example, or to the city. All right. So we have two kinds of interviews, formal and informal. The purpose of the interview, what is the purpose? Is to get the information from the source. So basically, from a journalistic perspective, because we're talking about journalism, why a reporter will be doing an interview? Because he's looking for some kind of information. I need some kind of information that I don't know, and I need that person to tell me so I know and write a story about it. Okay? So the purpose of the interview is to get the information from the source. Reporters interview people to know their opinions and to obtain factual information about events in the news. Pretty much. That's one main purpose. Why we're doing an interview to someone? To get their own opinion, first of all. And if they know some factual information about a certain event or a certain story, he or she, they're going to tell us. So we can write this down, report it, edit it, and come up with a story to be published on the newspapers. Now, let's discuss this photo as an example. This is an example of an interview. Now, if you remember in last class, when we talked about gathering information and new sources. Do you remember that? And when we talked about the sources, we have two kinds of sources, a primary and secondary sources. Now, looking at this photo, we have an example of an interview. There is a reporter who is talking to someone. So, this someone he's talking to, is this an example of a primary source or secondary source? What do you think? Do you still remember? I want you to use your imagination because I'm talking to you. Is this an example of a primary source or secondary source? Yes. Someone said it is an example of a primary source. Why? Because the interviewer he's having a direct contact with this person to get information from. So this is like a face-to-face. This is direct. There's no third party who's going to give you this kind of information. It is me, the journalist, and the person that I'm talking to, which considered to be the source. Good. Now, in this photo again, is this a formal interview or informal? What do you think? Yes, someone said it is formal. Why? Yeah, because both of them they look formal. Both of them they wear formal attire. Both of them they put on a suit in a very formal place. Okay, my next question. Who is the interviewer and who is the interviewee? The person on the right side. What do we call him? Interviewer or interviewee? You're right. We call him interviewer, okay? Because it looks like very obvious. He's got a laptop, he's well prepared, he's got information, he's got a pen. He looked and looked at his face. Like the eyes are so focused on the person that he's talking to, right? It means that this interviewer is given a full attention. So the person next to him, very simple, we call him the interviewee. Good work. Let's move on. Now, principles of successful interviews. Let's learn a little bit about some of the principles for successful interviews. In order to be very successful in the interviews, you need to prepare carefully, familiarize yourself with the background. Pretty much. You cannot be a good interviewer if you haven't done your homework. You know, before you go and talk to someone, there's some kind of homework that you have to do. You need to be well prepared. Do your assignment, do your search. Understand what exactly that you need to know. You need to understand what kind of person that I'm going to talk to, what is his background, in order not to put myself in any kind of embarrassing situation. Okay? Also, you need to establish a relationship with the source to obtain information. What kind of relationship? It's a professional relationship. Remember what I said last class? In the last class, what did I say about the journalist? I said the journalist, he should be a multi-task person with multi-skills. One of his other skills that he should be a public relations officer. He should have a network of connection. So if I'm making an interview with someone for the first time, it doesn't mean I will not need this person for a next time or a third time. So you need to establish a very good, healthy, professional relationship with the source. And when you have this kind of, professional relationship with the source, you will make him very comfortable, and you all as well, you're going to be very comfortable talking to this person. You know what I mean? Because in this case you're not talking to a stranger. Both of you are in a very comfort zone. You can exchange information and talk nicely, and at the end of the day the outcome will be very nourishing, and you can end up with a very good report. The next point, ask questions that are relevant to the story and that induce the source to talk. And this is part of you, because in order to become a very good interviewer, you need to be well prepared. You need to be so focused, establishing a good relationship, and ask relevant questions. You need to ask related questions to the thing that you try to investigate. You know what I mean? Do not ask some questions that are off topic. How? For example, like you're talking to someone and you try to get some information about a certain kind of an event, and like in the middle of this interview, you say, "Ah, man, I feel hungry. What do you think we should eat after we do this interview? Is pizza okay? Pizza? What kind of pizza? Like Pizza Hut or Domino's?" Oh yeah, pizza. Is that inexpensive? And then you started to digress. No, man, this is doesn't work like that. You need to be so focused. You need to be professional. If there is something that you need to cover throughout this interview, make sure all the questions is related to the topic that you're trying to discuss. For example, if you are meeting the Ministry of Health to ask about this coronavirus cases in Oman, all these questions should be related to the coronavirus in Oman. Do not tell him, oh, what is the coronavirus in America? Well, this is not his job. This is off-topic question. It is your job to go and search and to know about it. But make sure this question that you're asking this person is so relevant. All right. And another important principle: listen and watch attentively. Actually, when you're talking to someone, when you listen, you also need to look at this person, because when you look at this person, this is a sign of respect that you're telling him, I am very attentive to everything you are talking about. And I listen to everything that you say. Okay? Because what happens sometimes, and I've seen this myself, because when I work in radio or TV, what happens sometimes when someone is making this interview with you, they ask you a question, and then they look at the notebook and they try to prepare the second question, and you are talking, okay, and they're not really focusing on what you're trying to say. So at the time you're talking, they are preparing the next question. This is not professional. Professional is I ask a question and I look at you and I listen to you carefully. I give you full attention. Why? To give you a sign of respect. Secondly, at the time when you answer me, if I am a professional journalist, I can use this information to give you another question, if you know what I mean. Okay, this is very creative when it comes to making an interview. This is the difference between a professional journalist and an average one. Okay, and a professional, I ask a question and I listen carefully to what you say, and from your answer, I can use this information and give another question. Okay, it proves that I listen and giving you a full attention. But if I jump suddenly to another question, okay, it means I'm not really giving a full attention. So listen and watch attentively. Okay, so types of interview. There's so many different types of interview, to be honest. And for you guys, if you study the course Introduction to Communication, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm very sure you studied many different types of interviews. And I'll give you an example. For example, you studied appraisal interview. This is when you assess and evaluate the staff in a company at the end of every year. There is a counseling interview. This is when you do it to someone who needs some help or some support or some assistance. There is information interview, and this is you do it with a prominent personality in the society. You've got a lot of information. You invite them to TV or radio show, and then you ask them big questions. There is an exit interview, and this kind of an interview, for example, if someone is working in a company and they want to leave the company, and you need to have an interview with them to understand why they are leaving you, because you don't want to lose the good staff. You need to build up a good foundation in your company. But as far as journalism is concerned, we've got three types of interviews that we need to give attention to and focus on. So what are the three important interviews that are related to journalism? The first kind of interview is called a news interview. The second kind of an interview is called symposium interview. And the third type of interview is called personality interview. Okay? So, from a journalistic perspective, there are three types of interviews that we need to give attention to and focus on. And we need to understand about each and every one of these. So, a news interview, symposium interview, personality interview. Let's take them one by one and explain them with examples so you can understand and how this is related to journalism. So let's begin with the first type of an interview that is called a news interview. A news interview, from the name, news meaning information, and interview meaning conversation. So I make this conversation to get your news from someone. Pretty much. This is in a very simple way. You need to simplify stuff. Do not complicate yourself. Sometimes the words can talk. News, okay, information. Interview is conversation. So I'm doing conversation to get kind of information. Very simple. So news interview, what is that? It is intended to give the readers expert comments on a subject from persons directly or indirectly connected with the story. Okay, this is pretty much what we see on TV. This is what we see or we hear on the radio, and sometimes we read on the newspapers. You get someone, you make an interview with them to get some information from them, and you can build up a story. Okay, so listen, take an example to understand this. In case of a car accident, for example, the reporter tries to meet eyewitness to prepare the story. Okay, there is a car accident, and the person who did this accident, he was taken to the hospital for medical attention because he is injured or he fell unconscious. This is, of course, not the good time to make an interview with this person, right? So we need someone else who have got information about this story of an accident who can tell us. Someone who has information, a source. So what could be the source in this case will be an eyewitness, meaning someone who saw how this accident happened. So me as a journalist, I will go and talk to this person. Hey, how you going, man? All's good. So you tell me how this accident happened. Describe. Tell me. So basically, I'm not concerned about personal information of this eyewitness. What I care about is the information that this person is going to give to me. I can take his name and his age. That's it. Enough. And the main focus is on the news, and this is we call it a news interview. So you're making this a news interview with this eyewitness who saw the accident to get information, who to tell you a full description how this accident happened. You know what I mean? So that's why we call it a news interview. So the interviews carried on different people will not only eliminate and explain several points, but also provide better understanding of the subject by clearing many confusing facts. All right. So sometimes it's not enough really to make an interview with one eyewitness. You need more than one eyewitness. Why? Because you need to confirm some information. Sometimes a full story cannot be very precise if it is told from one person. If it is told from many different people, okay, in this case, I'm going to confirm the quality of this information, and my story, when it goes to public, it will go with the best quality possible. All right. So, a news interview again, it is appropriate to use open questions to draw out the information and to encourage the interviewee to tell you what they know. And again, I'll take you back to the memory. I wonder, do you still have strong memory, guys? Do you still remember what we talked about in the course Introduction to Communication? You've taken this course years ago, but it has some good quality information and all this kind of stuff, very much interconnected. I'm very sure you studied different types of questions in this course, Introduction to Communication. Open a question, close question, factual question, opinion question, direct question, unbiased question, question tags, many different kind of questions. You studied that. So when you do a news interview, what is the best kind of question that you should ask? It's called open questions. Why it is an open question? Because when you open the question, you give the chance to the person who's talking to you to give you as much information as possible. Okay? Open questions are questions to which you can't answer yes or no. Don't ask him yes, no question. Avoid yes, no question, man. Like if you ask yes, no question, you're killing this interview. You're getting no information. For example, look at this photo. This is taken from a famous TV show from Al Jazeera TV channel. You know this famous program that is called The Opposite Direction, okay, presented by Dr. Faisal Qasim. And this is a very, very controversial program. They come up with topics every now and then. And this presenter on Al Jazeera TV channel always asking open questions. So, for example, let's imagine that they are talking about the coronavirus that is wiping the world now, and this is a very serious topic. Everyone is talking about it, and that's why you're sitting at home. I'm sitting at home, and we're having this kind of virtual class. Open question will look like, for example, he will ask him, uh, what do you expect to happen if the world will not be taking serious action to stop the coronavirus? This is an open question because he can talk and talk and talk. But avoid a question like, are you happy that coronavirus is killing people? The answer is no. Okay, so what kind of information did I get? So don't ask yes, no questions. Ask open questions. Open questions is like, what kind of actions the government should take to stop the coronavirus? This is an open question. Let's discuss it. Okay? Don't tell him, are you happy that the government, they are not really taking actions? No. So yeah, these are yes, no questions, not good questions. Avoid them. Okay? So open questions are the best kind of question they should be asked during this news interview. The second kind of interview is called symposium interview. Symposium, I'm sure you know what a symposium is. And you have seen many examples of symposiums in the CAS colleges they have done in the big hall of Oman. Yeah. Where you see someone is making an interview with many different people on a stage and the audience they are sitting. This is called symposium to discuss a certain kind of theme or topic. So as you see in the photo, this is an example of a symposium, and that happened in November 2017. And the title or the theme of the symposium is a blockchain symposium. Okay. So what happens in this kind of interview? In symposium interview, the reporter gets his information not only from a few persons who are connected with the event, as in the case of an accident, but from several persons who may not be connected with the event. Let's imagine, and again, we need to use the power of imagination, okay? Imagine with me that you and I were sitting among the audience and we are attending the symposium, okay? And these people, they're doing the symposium to us. The theme of the symposium is free accidents in the Omani society. Okay? We need to fight traffic accidents. We don't need to have accidents anymore in Oman. Why? This is a serious thing. Does it affect the society? Yes, big time. It's killing people. It causes serious injuries, and it can affect the community and the government in a great deal. So if the journalist will be on the stage, for example, or the interviewer will be on the stage, not necessarily to get people who are specialized, you know, uh, theoretically or academic people, doctors or professors who will be talking about the danger of accidents and probably specialized. No, sometimes we need some ordinary people to join them. So in a symposium, sometimes when we invite the people to speak or people to ask them questions, not necessarily because they are knowledgeable, they have massive knowledge like professor or doctor. Sometimes we can ask a normal citizen to come on a stage and be part of this symposium. Why? To hear his opinion, you know? How this problem has influenced him. What did he lose? What kind of an impact happened? Did he go through a similar experience? You know, what happened to him? So we need to hear their experience. So people from different walks, you can invite on the stage professors, you can invite people from ROP, you know, you can invite people from the Ministry of Health, to report the cases and how they deal with the traffic accidents. And you can invite a normal Omani citizen because we need to understand their own point of view, how they think, and how can we solve this problem. Interviewees, you know what interviewees are? Are the people who are asking the questions? No. They are receiving the questions. They are the source of information. So interviewees are selected not for their knowledge, not necessarily. Not necessarily all the time should be a professor or a doctor or a manager or director, or not necessarily all the time. So they're not selected for their knowledge on the subject, but as ordinary citizens, those views are worth reporting. There is no strict to rule regarding the number of people to be interviewed. But the same question, mostly with the same words and in the same manner, should be put to different respondents. Symposium interview is used when you want the listeners, readers, or viewers' point of view on something that affects them. This is exactly the purpose of symposium. Not just knowledge, also we need to understand perspectives, okay? And that's why there should be a variety of people coming on the stage to give a talk. We need to hear what the doctors say. We need to hear what the professor is saying. We need to hear what the policeman is saying. And also we need to hear what the ordinary man is saying. So it's all about listeners, readers, and viewers' point of view on something that affects them, like, you know, traffic accidents. These can be short vox pops. Someone saying, what is vox pops? I started to talk Latin. Because vox pops, this is Latin word. And vox pops means voice of people. Okay? So one of the main objectives of having symposium interview is to hear and to give you a chance to hear the voice of people, what people think about a certain incident or a certain phenomenon in the society. So vox pops, this is Latin word that means voice of people. Okay, the third type of interview is called personality interview. So what is personality interview? Okay, from the name, personality is a person. Interview, so we make an interview with a person to get some information from. This is in a simple way to say it. So personality interview is conducted to reveal the personality of the interviewee. In this interview, the reporter selects interviewee who is a newsworthy personality or has a newsworthy personality because of some traits in his or her personality. What does this mean? Do you remember when we talked about elements of news? Can you give me some examples of elements of news? Yes. Timeliness, proximity, prominence. Ah, stop there. Prominence. So, what is a prominence? Meaning a famous personality. Why, if we write about a famous personality, and why, when we make an interview with a famous, prominent personality, you know, it's going to leave an impact on people? Because this personality is famous. This personality has got millions and millions of followers, millions of fans around the world. We know this person like a famous actor, a famous scientist, a famous singer, famous model, someone who is a prominent in the society, has got an influence or an impact. Okay, so we make this personality interview because we know people that, this personality has got huge number of fans, and these fans, they need to know what is the latest news about this person that we need to understand. Now, let's move on to understand some examples. Before we give you the example, this kind of personality interview also has got another name. It's called profile interview. Profile interview. Why it's a profile interview? Because basically you're asking someone some personal questions to reveal more about what is going on in their personal life. Look at this photo. I understand that lots of boys and girls, listening to this class. So, boys, I know you're a big fan of soccer, and you know this person that you're watching in this photo. This is Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, Cristiano Ronaldo. He's a famous football player. Lots of people they love this person, and lots of people they watch him. He's got millions and millions of followers on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. You know, he's a very famous person. So if you know that there's an interview on TV with a Cristiano and you love this guy and you're a big fan of him, immediately you're going to sit down and watch because you need to know what is the latest news about this man. This man, he has an impact on me. If I love soccer, for example, I try to learn from this guy. Like, what does he do in order to do something similar to him so I can develop and progress and improve the quality of my, football skills. Okay. All right. And for example, let's think about an example for the girls. For the girls, for example, if there is a fashion designer, a female who's so famous, she's a fashion designer. She comes with kind of designs that you really love, and you love to follow this lady, for example, on Instagram. And all of a sudden, you heard there's an interview with this lady. Okay, you freak out. You want to listen in order to know what is her latest kind of exhibition that she's going to do, or kind of design that she's going to design, so you can be updated. Okay. As we move on, let's learn about some guidelines to follow. So, in order to make this personal interview, what should I do? How to look organized? You, as a journalist, how you should do it. First up, you need to fix up an appointment with the person you want to interview. Okay? Very simple. Because this is a famous personality. This is not ordinary man or woman. This is someone famous, someone all the time busy. They've got lots of responsibilities, lots of commitment. So you need to talk to them and decide a perfect time to meet up, catch up with them, so you can do this personal interview. Okay? You just even if you're a famous journalist, you can't just, pop in to their offices, knock the door, go inside. Hello, I am from Oman Observer, and I'm keen to do an interview with you. Hello, come on. You can't interrupt people like that. So you need to make it professional, and you need to make it well organized. So by fixing up an appointment. Next, identify yourself. Describe the story, the relevance, and context of the interview. So when you call this person to make an interview with, you fix in an appointment, you need to tell this person who you are. Tell them, my name is blah, blah, blah. I work as a journalist on a Oman newspaper, and I am keen to have an interview with you about your latest fashion design, for example. Where you're going to be, okay, it's going to be, for example, in Al Bustan Palace Hotel. What time is going to be? 12 p.m. on Monday. You give specific details. You need to be well organized. So identify yourself, tell this person who you are, describe the story, give them the purpose. Why are you trying to make this interview? For what reason? What is the purpose? Okay? And anything that is related to this story. And tell them the context, meaning the place where you're going to conduct this interview. Is it on the beach? Is it on, for example, in a restaurant? Is it in a garden? Is it in an open place, indoor, outdoor? Where exactly? You need to be very specific. Another smart move, if you're a journalist, you need to search on the topic or the person. You can't make an interview with someone and you didn't search this person. You didn't know lots of information about this person. All right? So you need to search on the topic or person, check library clippings, or do a quick search on the internet. You need to collect as much information as possible about this person that you're trying to make interview with. Because you don't need to sound foolish in the interview. You need to sound professional. And how to sound professional? By collecting enough information and being aware of who this person is, what she or he is doing, and then what kind of a question that I'm going to ask this person. Think about what you want from the interview. Remember, all interviews are conducted for a certain purpose. Okay, so once you decided what person that I'm going to have an interview and where and when, also you need to decide about what and what specifically that you need to know. Because when you do a search, you know, in order to understand this personality and also understand enough about the story that you're trying to make, When you do the search, you will have or you will know some information, but there's some information that you will not be able to know. And this is what we call it the gap. Something missing in the story. And this something missing, you need to know from this person, and that's why you're making this interview for this with this person for a certain purpose. Why? What is this purpose? Is to fill in the gap because there's some kind of information that I didn't know, and hopefully this person that I'm trying to make this personal interview with is going to tell me about. Okay. Collect quotes and anecdotes and other evidence to support your arguments. Okay. This is again a good journalist is someone who is doing his or her homework perfectly. You search, you collect information, you collect quotations, you collect anecdotes, you become fully aware. So once you have this conversation or once you have this interview, it's going to go smooth. All right? And also it will be a sign of respect to the person that you're talking to because this is also indirect message to tell this person that I'm aware of how important person you are and I'm very honored to do this interview with you. And once the other side becomes very comfortable, even the conversation is going to be more fun and he is going to give you lots of information. And think of lines of a questioning. And this is part of, once you sit down, once you collect information, once you search, once you become fully aware, you sit down and you list the questions that you're going to ask this person that you're going to do an interview with. And you need to make sure these questions that you're going to ask him or ask her, is going to fill in the gap that is missing. Make sure these questions will be asked, to get the information that you really need to get to know. Okay, so how you prepare for this kind of personal interview? In order to prepare for this interview, you need to be aware of two things. We call them the P's: persistence and preparation. Persistence. Do you remember that word? Yes, we studied it in the second week when we talked about the characteristics of a reporter. What are the characteristics of a reporter? He has to be persistent. What does it mean to be persistent? Anyone remembers? Persistence. Persistence in journalism is to keep asking question after question until you are fully answered. That's called persistence in journalism. But when we talk about persistence in making an interview, persistence here, it is necessary to persuade people to be interviewed. Why? Because sometimes if you make a contact to someone that you need to make an interview with, don't expect them to say yes immediately. They might say no. They might apologize. They might say, excuse me, I've got some other commitments, I can't do this kind of thing. They might run away. But you need to be smart. You need to find a way how to persuade them to say, yes, I'm going to this interview with you. So that's called persistence. You don't give up. You should find a way how to persuade the other party or this source of information to sit down with you and have this interview with you. Once he says yes, then what you do? Preparation. So what is preparation? You search, okay, and you come with the references. You research about everything, you get yourself ready, you list down the questions, and you become fully ready, to have this interview with this person. So two things that you have to pay attention to when it comes to preparation for interviews: persistence and preparation. Okay, so here's some guidelines, or what we call it the interviewer's ground rules. What are they? The first one: identify himself or herself at the outset of the interview. You know, you need to give some kind of identification of the person. State the purpose of the interview. You need to tell this person this interview is about what? What is the main theme? What is the kind of information that I really need to know? Make it clear to those unaccustomed to being interviewed that the material will be used. Okay. Uh, when you try to make this interview, sometimes these people they're not aware how to act or react, in this kind of situation. So you need to make it clear how you're going to run this interview. Make them accustomed, meaning to make them familiar, to familiarize them to the interview situation so they can feel comfortable and give you as much information as possible. Tell the source, meaning tell the person that you're talking to, whom we call what? Interviewer or interviewee? Yes, we call him interviewee. So tell the source how much time the interview will take. Yeah. If you're a professional journalist, you list down your questions and these questions will take 30 minutes, will take 15 minutes, take 20 minutes. So once you have a talk, an agreement with this person that you're trying to get down for this interview, you tell them how long will it take so they can make this appointment with you. Keep the interview as short as possible. Well, it depends. It depends on the content, basically. It depends what kind of interview is going to be. And is it really interesting? Is it fun? If it is really interesting and fun, it's fine to go a little bit longer. But if you don't expect lots of interesting information or facts, then here you try to keep it average, okay? Or short, let's say. Ask specific questions that the source is competent to answer. And again, do not ask the person embarrassing question. Do not ask him off-topic question. Ask him questions related to the topic you guys agreed to talk about. Okay? That's why you need to ask specific questions that the source is competent, meaning able to give you answers about. Don't give him questions that he becomes so confused or he feels uncomfortable. He might leave you or he might have a conflict with you and then you might lose him and lose the whole conversation or the whole interview. Give the source ample time to reply. And this is what we call it creativity when someone is doing this interview. You need to give some time to the person that you're talking to. If you're asking them a question, wait, because they might think, they might organize the ideas in their head, okay, and answer you. And when they answer you, do not interrupt them, okay, because I've seen lots of cases on TV or on the radio, like someone who is talking and he is given good information that me as a listener I really enjoy, and I need to get to know more. And the presenter is interviewing, sorry, is interrupting. Do not interrupt if someone is very smooth in the conversation with you. Okay, ask the source to clarify complex or vague answers. If the interviewee who's talking to you is giving you some kind of scientific information or something complicated that you don't understand, it's fine to ask him back. Could you please clarify what do you mean by this? What do you mean by this term? What do you mean by this terminology? It's so good. So ask the source to clarify complex, meaning complicated, or vague, ambiguous answers. Read back answers if requested, or when in doubt about the phrasing of the crucial material. Okay? Sometimes when you are having this kind of interview, this person is talking to you and is giving you some weird information or some kind of ambiguous information that you're not really clear about, it's fine to repeat it just to make sure. Is this exactly what you mean? Yeah. Okay, it's fine. Because your job as a journalist, you have to make sure that you're reporting quality information. Insist on answers if the public has a right to know them. Sometimes, and again, you need to understand one thing that having an interview is very creative because you should find a way sometimes how to get information from this person. He's saying in the third point here, insist on answers if the public has a right to know them. For example, if I'm making an interview with the Ministry of Health and I need to know the number of cases confirmed for COVID-19, the coronavirus, and I ask him for a certain number, and then he said, Well, I'm not very sure. Probably next time I will give you the exact number, blah, blah, blah. So he's trying to digress. He's trying to maneuver, you know? So tell him, listen, this is very important answer, and the public, they really need to know this factual information. So give me what is the available figure so far so we can report it. So this is what we call it insistent answers, so the public has the right to know them. Avoid lecturing the source, arguing or debating. Pretty much. You know, if you have someone to have a conversation with, this conversation has to go smooth. You don't need to fight with them. You don't need to argue, you know? And avoid lecturing the source, because if the source feels like someone is lecturing him, he could feel insulted. And once he feels insulted, he could get annoyed. He can leave you. Say goodbye. Thank you so much. I'm not doing this. Yeah, I'm going home. So avoid lecturing the source and arguing or debating. So you need to be very polite and you need to be diplomatic. Do you remember that word? Diplomatic, which is carefully choosing the right words when you're trying to have a conversation with someone. And the last point, abide the request for non attribution, background only, or off the record should the source make this condition of the interview or of a statement. What does this mean? Sometimes when you have an interview with someone, the interviewee, for example, he will have a request from you. He'll say, "Excuse me, this kind of information, I don't want them to go on public. You know, don't give this information about me. Please avoid this, avoid that." From an ethical perspective, this is his right. Okay, you can't just, you know, sometimes if you mention everything and he's not happy about you mentioning everything, you can get in trouble. And also, journalists sometimes what they do when they have this interview with someone, for example, they take a permission. They will say, "Would you mind if I record this interview?" Some of the people they say yes, some of the people they say no. So you can't force them. So okay. So your job here is to have this interview, use your notes, and use your memory. All right. So this is what it means. Listening and hearing. Listening is not like hearing, to be honest. And we discussed that in the course Introduction to Communication. Listening meaning you give attention to someone. Hearing is something with no attention. I'll give you an example. If you're in a class, okay, now you are, for example, sitting in your laptop or an iPad or probably from your mobile phone, smart mobile phone, and you're listening to this lesson online, okay? You are listening. You see, this is what I said. You are listening. It means you're giving attention to everything that I'm trying to say, but you're not hearing. What do you hear while you're sitting in your room? Well, if you're sitting in your room and there is an EAC on air conditioning that is on, so you hear in the air conditioning, but basically you're not giving an attention to this, you know, air conditioning. You just hear the voice. It's a normal voice. So listening is giving attention. So this is what you need to do. When you are having an interview with someone, you need to listen. It means you need to give full attention to this person. Why? Because you need to get this information from him, and you can use this information to make another question to get even more information. And also, it is a sign of politeness. Okay? Imagine that you are in a classroom, for example, and the teacher is talking to you and you're not given an eye contact, like you're busy, you know, with your book or with your mobile phone and the teacher is teaching. Is this polite? No, it's not polite because you're not basically listening, you know, you're ignoring. So listening is to give an attention. You listen carefully and you even give an eye contact. So the first, how you do that, you cut down your ego. What does it mean, cut down your ego? You need to remember when you make this interview, it's not about you. Probably you're a famous journalist, you know, working in radio and TV, and you know, through the 20 years or something, people they read your stuff in the newspaper. So you think deep inside that you're a famous person, and big personality, you can do whatever you want. And when you make this interview with someone, you try to show this person that you are King Larry, Larry King Live. No, it's not about you. It's about the person that you're talking to. He's saying, cut down your ego. Try to be humble when you're making this interview with someone, because the main point is to get information from the source, and you need to make him feel comfortable so he can talk to you and give you information. All right. Open your mind to new or different ideas. You need to be open minded. Okay, probably you will come across some kind of information that you disagree with. It's fine. Let it go. Just be smooth in the conversation. Keep going. Open minded. Become open minded. Third person, or the third point, sorry. Grant the interviewee time to develop his or her thoughts. Okay, this is what I said. This is what we discussed. Previously, we said give ample time to the interviewee to talk. Give him a chance to think and talk. That's his right. Never interrupt. Okay, because if you keep interrupting, this is annoying, this is disrespectful, this is impolite, and this is cutting out important information that might come to you or come to the listener, come to the reader. So never interrupt. Ask the question and wait. And you should know exactly what is the time, you know, to ask again or to get into the conversation again. This is creative again. Concentrate on what the person is saying and make secondary the person's personality, demeanor, or appearance. This is a very funny point. And lots of people, they make this mistake. Again, let me just read it. Concentrate, meaning focus on what the person is saying and make secondary the person's personality, demeanor, or appearance. Sometimes when we are having an interview with someone, we ask them a question, and instead of listening to the answer, what we do, we get busy with their appearance. I ask them a question and say, "Excuse me, sir, could you tell me the number of cases that are confirmed positive for the coronavirus in Oman?" And he started talking. And for example, I'm looking at his mobile phone. Oh, this is nice iPhone. Wow, he bought the latest one. All right. So, or if you're talking to a lady, for example, you might get distracted by her looks. So, okay, you ask her a question, for example, and then you look at her, handbag. Oh, Gucci. Well, she bought Gucci. I said, how much is that? And then you start having this kind of inner conversation. It does happen. It's a human feeling. Okay. But remember, this is not professional. When you ask a question, you need to focus on how this person is going to reply to the question. This is not the time to focus on their appearance, how they look like, why they're wearing this, why they have this, No, just leave that kind of appearance aside and focus on what kind of information they're going to tell you. Limit questions to the theme or to relevant ideas that turn up in the interview. Okay. So you need to make sure that my questions, all of them, is related to the theme, is related to the event, to the story. Avoid any off-topic questions. That's what I call them. That will take you somewhere else. And do not ask long questions. Yeah, be creative. Like smart question, straightforward, open a question. Okay, not yes, no question. Open a question, but short. It's not a long one. All right. The third type of news is called a news conference, or the third type of interview. It's called a news conference. A news conference or a press conference is a formal conference of a pressman invited by an organization in which, after initial announcement, he answers questions of a newsman. All right. I am very sure you know what a press conference is. A press conference most often is organized by the public relation department in any kind of an organization. If there's a company, if there's an institution, if there's an organization, and they have a function, they have an exhibition, they have, any kind of an event, all right? So they need to organize a press conference. So they decide the location, they decide the time, and they decide the date, and then they get in touch with the people in the newspaper, tell them, listen, guys, we have got a press conference because we have an exhibition, for example, in our organization, and we need you to come to cover this event. So we have some people to answer you, sorry, we have people to answer all your questions once you come to this press conference. All right? So this is what we call it press conference. All right. So again, I'll be talking to the guys, to the boys, because the boys, they love soccer, they love football. A good example of a press conference is what you see before the match and after the football match. All right? Like exactly like this photo. I'm very sure. I know the girls, they are not aware of who this person is, but most of the guys who are listening to me right now, they're aware who this guy is. This is, yes, you're right. This is Jurgen Klopp, and this is the manager for the Liverpool club in the Premier League. All right. This is unlucky season for them because they are knocked out from the Champions League, and they are knocked out from the England Cup and the Premier League. The coronavirus started spread across the world, and this kind of league in England has been suspended. So this is an example of a press conference. Usually happens before a football match and after a football match. You see this person? This guy is representing an organization. Look at this definition again. What did we say? We said a news conference or a press conference is a formal conference of a pressman, meaning reporters or journalists, invited by an organization. So what is the organization in this picture? The organization is Liverpool Club. Liverpool Club is an organization in which, after the initial announcement, who is he in this photo, will be Jurgen Klopp, who is representing the organization of Liverpool Club, to answer the questions that will come to him from the newsmen. So this is an example of press conference, you know? And we have examples of a press conference. For example, a press briefing. What is a press briefing? Press briefing is similar to press conference in that newsmen are told something and they can ask questions. Meaning, you do this at press conference and you talk to the reporters. Listen, guys, this press conference is only related about this football match. Don't ask personal questions. Don't ask the manager what kind of a player is leaving the club after the season, and are you guys going to buy a new, football players from another club? No, be focused. That's why they call it press briefing. You just decide what is the area of question and answers, and then you give a chance for the pressmen, the reporters, to ask this person. Okay, so similar to press conference, in that newsmen are told something, meaning we tell them the limited topic in which they can ask only questions about. Don't digress. Don't go somewhere else. Okay, so they can ask questions about. Another kind of conference, we call it meet the press. Meet the press association invites individuals to meet the journalists. So this kind of conference usually is organized by newspapers. Okay, sometimes these press conferences can be organized by companies, organizations, all right, or can be organized by newspapers. So if it is organized by newspapers, it's called meet the press. So this newspaper will decide the time and the date, and they will go to a company, they will go to an organization, they'll go to any kind of institution, and they send invitation to them, tell them, please, we have a press conference, and we need you to send some kind of representatives to come to this news press or to this press conference to be part of it. Okay, so we call it meet the press. Who organizes meet the press? Newspapers. This is what you need to understand. All right. And checklist for news conferences. Things that you need to be aware of. If you're a reporter, if you're a journalist and you're attending a press conference, you need to make checklist for some important information that you need to know. For example, major point of a speaker. You need to know who is the main speaker in this conference. For example, in this example, who's the main speaker? Is the coach for Liverpool. So I should be aware in this press conference who is the major speaker? Ah, it's Jurgen Klopp. Excellent, good. So major point of a speaker. Second, name and identification of a speaker. What is his name? Ah, Jurgen Klopp. What is identification? Who is he? Is he a cleaner? Is he a driver, bus driver? No, he's a manager. Good, excellent. So he's a manager of the club. What is the purpose of this conference? What time? Where? The location and length of the conference. For how long it's going to be. You should be aware of this kind of information. Background of major points. You know, you need to be aware. This conference will cover what main points and be prepared to come up with the questions. And major point in a statement, major points in a question and answer period. Also, in a press conference, you need to understand that there are two sessions. Session one is the person will be given a talk, all right? And once he finishes, then they give a chance for the reporters or the journalists to give a question and answer session, all right? So during this time, you should be aware what is the major point or what is the main ideas that are mentioned in the first presentation, in the first statement. And what are the major points that came from the newsman or the journalist in the question answer period, okay? So two presentations, two sessions. First, the main person who is invited to this press conference, who will do a presentation for 5 minutes to talk about any kind of exhibition, certain kind of event that is happening, launching a new car, features of this car, and then you give a chance, for example, to the reporters to give you questions about what you're talking about. So major point in a statement, major points in a question and answer period. So becoming aware of what happens in the first session, what happens in the second session. And also need to become aware of the consequence of the announcement, all right? During the press conference, lots of information will come to you if you are a reporter. You just write down lots of information, trying to make a story. This information that comes to you might have an outcome, meaning might have or lead to some kind of results, all right? So this is what we call the consequence of the announcement. All right, so yes, we have come almost toward the end of our class today. Hopefully, you guys could manage listening and understanding also what I'm trying to talk to you about, because it's all about imagination. I'm trying to visualize, and I'm trying also to do my best to simplify the process of teaching by giving you some examples as well as I talk. So the summary of the talk today we spoke about interview is a conversation with a person who is the source of information. And there are three types of interviews you should be aware of as far as journalism is concerned. What we call them: news interview to get information, personality interview is when you're having that kind of interview with a famous, prominent personality. Symposium interview is when you're trying to discuss a certain kind of an event or certain kind of a phenomenon in the community or the society. And you invite many different people to give their opinion about it. Guidelines for conducting perfect interviews, press conference, press briefing, and the press should be able to differentiate between these three. Press conference and press briefing pretty much the same and can be organized by the public relation department and the organization to invite the press to come. But the press is when the newspapers, they decide for this conference and they invite people to represent a certain kind of organization or certain kind of institution or company and become part of this press conference to give information. So hopefully you guys could manage to understand week 12 in which we talked about interviews. So yes, thank you so much for listening to me. And if you guys have got any question, you can email me. This is the email. And look forward again to another class online in the future to come. Take care of yourself and have a nice day.